In order to succeed in business or life for that matter, it's important that you develop four abilities: dependability, availability, responsibility, and accountability. Let's start with dependability. Dependability means you are consistent, you're reliable, you are a person of your word. Pretty much what you say and what you do line up. And dependability is kind of like your reputation. When they say your reputation precedes you, that's the way dependability works. It's one of those things where you don't necessarily talk a good game. You play a good game. You live it. You embody it. You become known for being dependable. You become known for being that person who is very reliable. Let's say in business, just one example. Let's say if you send out an email every single Monday, it could be your newsletter, and you're known for that. Well, if you're known for that, you can't miss a Monday sending out an email or a newsletter. You got to do it every single week because that establishes your reputation. That cements in people's mind that you are dependable. So in every aspect of your business, you want to be dependable. You want to be a person that people can count on. And again, in life, it's the same way. The more dependable you are, the more people will trust you. So work on that ability, become very, very dependable. Become that person who is very consistent, very reliable. You can be counted on to do a certain thing all the time, something that people want or desire. You deliver on that promise all the time, every single time. You don't miss you don't miss an opportunity to fulfill your promises. Again, I've always liked to use sports in cementing principles in my mind. And I remember Michael Jordan said one time that he shows up for every single game because he didn't know whether or not a kid was in the audience or just somebody in general. They paid money to see him play, and they had never ever seen him play before. So he didn't want to let him down and have an off night, a night in which he didn't give his full effort and go all out to be the best that he could be. And then I saw a clip of Kobe. He pretty much said the same thing. He said he didn't want to have a kid out there in the audience watching him play and he deliver a subpar performance because his effort wasn't there for that night. He said, you never know, that kid could grow up to be the next superstar player. And it would happen all because he was inspired by seeing him play, seeing Kobe play. He said that's how important it was to him. Just could not take a night off. And those two players, they became very, very dependable. I mean, you could always count on them to have a very, very solid game. Night in, night out. They always had great games. And even if their team didn't win, you could look at them and see the motor churning. You could see the drive. You could see that desire to win. And it was demonstrated in their actions every single night that they laced up their shoelaces and took the court to play. There was no half effort. There was no complacency. There was no attitude of I've arrived, I'm there, I am him. They were never that way. They always played all out with everything they had, every single game. So they were reliable. So if you paid money to see them play, You knew what you're going to get. You knew you were going to get the best that night, and they always were head and shoulders above the other players on the court on a consistent basis because they both totally believed in giving people their money's worth every single time they played. They were very dependable in that respect. And you should be too, as well. You should be known as a very dependable person. Number two is availability. You want to be accessible, and a little bit like before, an example I used before, you want to show up no matter what. You want to be that person, that business owner who people can get access to them. Let's say if you're coaching, they can get the one-on-one time with you, or they can get access to you through a product that you made, you created. But mainly in the area of let's say support, they should always have that accessibility to you or someone on your team to get their questions answered. And it could just be a FAQ. You could make sure you have it very much in detail. Because when people make a purchase from you, the one thing they want to be able to feel inside is a sense of security, knowing that they made the right decision and you're going to be there to support them no matter what comes up when it comes to you fulfilling your promise to them. So make sure you're accessible in that respect. And again, these things can be laid out so that they're automated to where you don't actually have to be there 24/7. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that your product or service, it pretty much fulfills the promise that you gave to the prospective customer before they became a customer. And once they are a customer, you are accessible in that you can still provide their solutions and all the support material that comes along with that, or the system that is in place. It all fulfills that promise. That's why it's in place, to fulfill that promise. And in that respect, you are accessible, and you continue to show up time and time again, no matter what. It's the answers to their questions, and it's the making them feel like they made a great decision by purchasing your product or your services, and they feel good about it, and they feel confident that they made the right choice, and they have picked the person who can help them get what they want. And you're going to be providing them with answers, not just on day one, but on into the future. And the other thing, it's not just that support there, but it's also in all the other content that you put out. All your content should support all of your products, so that as you move forward, everything is really consistent. It's all the same as you go forward. And you grow as a person too. So the product that you sold them before, or the services that you've been giving them, they're going to continue to get better. And not only that, the free stuff that you offer pretty much lines up with what you sold. So they have accessibility to you constantly because you're always cranking out new content. You're always sending out emails. You're always writing new articles. You're always creating more videos, podcasts, social media posts, things like that. That's where they have the accessibility to you. So think of it in that term, and not so much like you have to be there all the time, because you have a lifestyle that you're trying to live as well. That's why you're building a business. You're building a business so that you can have that freedom lifestyle. But the system, I harp on this a lot, it's the systems that you put in place that allow you to live that lifestyle while fulfilling the needs of your customers. And your lifestyle is something that's precious to you as well. So it's like you're feeding you're feeding a pipeline, and you're putting all this quality into your pipeline so that that the customer is being satisfied with what you're giving them, and then in return, they're giving you money and all the other things that you really want from your business. And a lot of it's not just the money, but it's the fulfillment that you get from helping them solve their problems and knowing that, hey, at one time I was in their shoes and now I'm able to help them along their journey because of what I went through, and then getting them to where they want to go helps them feel good, and in return they give me money. But not only that, they sing my praises, they help, they tell other people about me, and sometimes what will happen is people will send you an email telling you that something that you said, something that you did for them totally changed their life. Well, you can't put a price tag on that. You can't. Sometimes that's probably the most important part, that you made a difference, and you can only do that by being accessible, available, and you're available by, again, the content that you're putting out into the marketplace and doing it on a consistent basis. The next one, the next ability, number 3, is responsibility. That just entails taking initiative, being a leader in your field, being the person who does it first. Take charge, that take charge attitude. You want to be the person who says the buck stops here, kind of like President Truman. In his presidency, he had a sign on his desk saying the buck stops here. What that meant is all of the responsibility for all of the decisions made during his presidency resided in him. So the buck stops here. You've heard the saying, people would say, he's just passing the buck, she's just passing the buck. Well, in life, that's really frustrating. And it's really frustrating when you have a customer, they're frustrated by something, and then they can't get answers to their questions. And somebody is passing the buck. Well, as a business owner, you got to embody that ability. That is that responsibility of the buck stops here. And it is not going to go any further. I'm not going to pass it on to somebody else. I'm going to handle it right now. I'm going to nip it in the bud, and I'm going to take care of it. So when you are very responsible and you are the leader, and with that responsibility comes so many of the benefits that you would miss sometimes when you're working a job and you're in an organization, and there's always somebody over top of you calling those shots. And you may see things a little bit differently, but you're limited in what you can do because you aren't the true leader. You're just one of the leaders. You're one cog in the wheel. When you have your own business, it's different. You are the driver. You are the one calling the shots. And you need to take that on completely. You need to always cherish that, because it can be a burden sometimes, but it is why you do what you do. It really is. That's probably one of the main benefits of being in business for yourself, is that you are the leader, and you are the driver, and you are the one who's directing the ship. You are the one who is driving the ship. You're the pilot. You're all of that. And it really makes you feel good in the long run. It calls for some lonely nights sometimes, because nobody can really relate to you. You can't necessarily talk to your friends or your family about what you're going through. But again, I've talked before about having a mentor. A mentor will understand, and they will be able to help you. But still, it's a lonely road, but it's a fulfilling road, because you could have an idea in the morning, and by the time you lay your head on the pillow at night, you could have implemented that idea, put it into motion, and actually start seeing the fruits of your labor within that 10 to 12 hour span of time. Definitely within a few days or a few weeks or sometimes a few months and sometimes a few years, you can see it. All of the big business moguls, they had that about them. They loved being able to come up with an idea and then guide that idea to fruition through their organization. And that's something you have as a business owner. You have that power. And it really lies underneath that ability of being responsible. So always embrace responsibility and know that that is your job. That's one of the many hats you wear, but it's the main hat, actually, just being responsible and in charge. All right, the next one is accountability. Number 4 is accountability. Accountability, simply stated, means if there's a mistake, you just hone up to it and you fix it. And that, in a nutshell, is something that's missing a lot, not just in business, but in our society. Just taking accountability. I remember when I was a manager, I used to be a service manager in a restaurant. I know I've probably told my story before, but one thing I used to always think in terms of when I became a manager was when I walked through the door, everything is my fault. You know, if somebody didn't show up to work that day, that was my fault. I wouldn't say that completely, that they didn't show up that day. But if they regularly didn't show up, like if they didn't show up like 5 or 6 times in a month or something like that, I looked at that as my fault. You know, either I didn't do a good job of hiring, or I should have fired them before then, or I should have replaced them. I was thinking those terms, or if, you know, no matter what happened, like if it was happening on a regular basis, it was my fault. And that's the way I always look at it. But here's the thing, there's a lot of power in that, because if it's my fault, then I can fix it. When you put it in other people's hands and you're blaming other people all the time and you're not taking accountability, well, you never know where you're going to end up because you're putting it in other people's hands and they have control. You need to always take control. You need to always be accountable for the things that happen within your organization. And if there's a mistake, like I said before, you need to hone up to that mistake and you need to fix it. You need to own it. Always own it in your business. You should take extreme ownership of everything. So you're always accountable, and you are the person that created whatever is happening, good or bad. You got to look at it in those terms, like I created this. And I like to key on the bad part of it mostly because if you can continue to correct those mistakes, you end up having a well-run organization. And when the things are going good, of course, you want to celebrate the victories and you want to celebrate the accomplishments and the achievements, but you want to keep those in perspective and know that whenever there's mistakes, the more you correct those mistakes, the more you will experience the successes that you're after. It's like you got to be very, very aware of mistakes and pitfalls that can trip you up down the road. So you got to be thinking long term. You got to be projecting out, like, you know, a year, 2 years. How will this trip me up? You know, or what can happen to cause things to go awry in the future? You know, so what trends are on the horizon? What's happening in the marketplace? All of that is a form of accountability. And once you start to really grow your business, you start to see that other people are dependent on you as well. So you have the added motivation to always be accountable. It's not somebody else's fault. It's your fault. It's always your fault. You got to always think in those terms, because you can correct your mistakes if you look at it as your fault, like you messed up. I always think in terms of, I messed up. I got to fix it. I got to fix it. I got to own up to any mistakes that I made, and then I got to correct them. So you're thinking like that in life as well as business, and you will continue to grow and get better. You have a whole lot less disappointment. The frustration will be there from time to time, but it's not the same type of frustration, because you don't feel like it's out of your control. You feel like almost everything is in your control, because you can make corrections when you see fit. So that's why accountability is so very important. So that covers those 4 abilities. I hope that helps you out, and have a wonderful day, and we will talk soon.